Okay, so we're going to start. I am Dennis McGuire, and the team here has been a team, Patrick and Jonathan, for many, many years, and they are quite the team too. I think you're in for a real treat. They've been working on this issue for a while, but they've also been together for so long. Look, I really enjoy coming back here. I miss seeing you folks, and I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm going to turn it over to these guys.
Thank you. No, we both. We're all wired.
Sit there, Wire.
Yeah. Wired on coffee and so welcome, thank you for joining us. Patrick and I are going to talk about the ups and downs of social sensitivity. Hopefully most of you have read Dr. McGuire's work on social sensitivity. He's definitely by far the expert in the field of Down syndrome on social sensitivity. He's running away because I'm embarrassing him. But he is definitely an expert, so I may defer to him at times during sessions if you guys have some questions, but I should be able to answer all your questions. I am a behavior analyst, and Patrick here. So this is Patrick Nicholson. He's my co-presenter. Patrick and I have been working together for, what, 4 years now? 5 years now?
Yeah.
Probably 4 or 5 years now at this point. And we've been through a lot together. And so we hope you guys enjoy it. So we are going to start with the Nicholson report. So Patrick loves to interview people. Patrick works at Loyola Academy, and for quite some time they held a special segment called the Nicholson Report. So Pat came out of retirement to do one for our presentation, so we hope you guys enjoy it.
I am Patrick Nicholson, and welcome to the Nicholson Report. Today I am interviewing people about their triggers. Hi, what makes you upset?
Well, when people make me upset, kind of makes me cry, and it usually upsets me when people talk to me behind my back, or if they have any rumors about me, and I just don't like it very much.
Any else?
And then I don't like when people bring up my sister because it really upsets me.
Hi, what makes you upset?
Well, makes me upset is when people tells me what to do, they boss me around, and I don't like people touching my stuff without permission.
Perfect.
On such if some of my housemates, if they don't get along or doing sports, and that gets too emotional for me.
What makes you nervous?
I usually don't get nervous when people talk to me, so usually kind of keep myself in check when I don't get nervous.
How about your roommates at the sharing apartment?
My roommate, well, sometimes she does make me nervous when she talks to herself, so it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of.
What makes you nervous?
What makes me nervous is I get shaky very easy, and because I get shaky because I feel something in my body, and I feel nervous about when I need to go up on stage, but I can handle going on stage. It's hard for me to speak in front of millions of people, but I'm doing it anyway.
Are you scared of anything?
The spiders and worms.
How about mice?
Yes, very much.
Okay, we're gonna move on. Are you scared of anything?
Yes I am. I'm scared of cats. I'm scared of cats, and when people startle me, when they scare me, when out of notice, and I don't recognize them right away.
Okay.
I'm always scared of heights, and I did face my fear in Costa Rica when I did zip lining.
Are there any words you don't like?
Any words I don't like is cats and feeling anxious.
Are there any words you don't like?
Well, I don't like when there's rumors around, because it just doesn't make me. I have my own rumors, but I don't like them, so it just makes me feel bad if I upset anyone or not liking me, because I know people like me a lot.
I don't like swearing.
Okay. Are there?
I don't like people who hurt me.
Okay. Okay.
Because I don't like people hurt me, because it's getting worse. Because sometimes people need to stand back. Sometimes
I never like using swear words because they are really bad.
Thanks, and this is the end of the Nicholson Report. Peace out.
We hope you guys enjoyed that. So we're going to get into our topic today. The video gave us a good understanding of what triggers are for our individuals that we work with Down syndrome. Obviously, it's not everyone has those triggers, right? But it's a good understanding and something that you guys will kind of go back to as we keep presenting. So what is social sensitivity? So social sensitivity is the ability to read social cues within one's immediate social environment. Okay? This includes picking up on the feelings and emotions of others within one's own environment. So individuals with Down syndrome have great social sensitivity. I see this often, and we'll get more into it, but I wanted to kind of give you guys a background before we started getting more into this. Okay? So individuals with Down syndrome definitely have great social sensitivity. It helps them develop and maintain positive relationships. Okay? So that would be a positive of the social sensitivity that they have. Sorry, I'm going through my notes, so I apologize. It also allows them to relate well to others. So what we mean by that is, if many of you know, if you have sons or daughters, right, they can make friends anywhere, right? It's phenomenal. Patrick and I will go to a new place, and Pat will be talking to the barista, and we'll know her name, know her birthday, all these things in a 5-minute time span, right? So social sensitivity helps them in that way, right, to navigate their environment. It also makes them empathic and responsive to feelings, right? Many of you know this. They may pick up these feelings even if they're not openly expressed by another person, right? So I'm always in awe of how Pat knows I'm having a bad day, even when I feel like I'm putting on a good front. Usually he'll say it to me in private, which is appropriate, something that we worked on, not sitting in front of others. But we'll be sitting in my car, we'll be driving to his job site, and Pat will say to me, "You're having a bad day, aren't you?" And he knows. And even if I say, "No, I'm not having a bad day," he'll be like, "Yes, you are. You're having a bad day today," right? Yeah. So he knows when I'm having a bad day. It's noted. Many of the other individuals I work with, I mean, they know when you're having a bad day. They know when you're having a good day, right? If you're having a bad day or you seem sad, what are they going to do? They're going to come up and they're going to give you a hug, right? Try to make you feel better. It also allows, so social sensitivity also allows them to be acutely aware of their surroundings. So this helps them navigate new situations and help them adapt at times or initiate that fight or flight response, right? So it can keep them safe within their environment, but it can also help them adapt to their environment. So they can enter a room and they're easily adaptable to that room, right? Based on their social sensitivity. Along with that, it allows them to develop great social skills. So by social skills, I mean it helps them develop relationships with others. Makes them likable as well as helps them develop new relationships. So I remember a time when my wife first met Patrick. She had very little interactions with individuals with Down syndrome. And she, as we left the event that Patrick was at with us, she shared with me her surprise at how well Pat could carry a conversation. She thought that when she was sitting on top of Pat, she was going to have to kind of initiate the conversation and carry that conversation. But she said that was not the case. Pat was asking her appropriate questions, was showing interest. She was just so in awe of how well he picked up on things. Many of the other individuals I work with are like that too. I'm sure you guys noticed that in the people that you work with Down syndrome are your own kids, right? They're able to ask those questions that that maybe you or I might not even ask, right? Or we might miss. And then of course it gives them a general, genuine sense of affection and caring, right? So all the individuals with Down syndrome who I work with always ask how my family is doing. I've heard reports from families that often their loved ones even know more about others than they do, right? And I think that's really true. Some of my individuals know when their aunt is going to have surgery, but if you ask their mom has no idea because they keep in contact and they care. They have that genuine sense of caring. It's just phenomenal to see that. So that's a positive for them, right? So that would be an up of obviously social sensitivity. However, there is unfortunately a downside to this, and we're just going to go through some of these things. Now, I'm not saying that this is bad and they're bad people, of course, but there's always a positive side and a negative side to things, right? So the individuals may be too sensitive to negative feelings and emotions within their environment. And I do have a nice little picture here, and I just kind of want to take time to just explain to you. Now, this doesn't fit everybody, it's just a general picture, but it gives you kind of an understanding of what somebody who is highly sensitive might feel, right? And we'll kind of get more into this, but I thought it was a good thing, and you guys all have did you guys get print handouts? Okay. Well, hopefully, if you guys need handouts, we can email it to you. Just let us know. At the end of the presentation, I'll be glad to take emails, and I can email it to you so you can take a look at it. But going back to the topic, so individuals, so these negative feelings and emotions can impact their lives in that moment, right? And I've seen our guys and gals go from happy to angry because they walked into a room where someone was upset, right? How many of you have seen that? Your son or daughter walks into a room, they're happy-go-lucky with you in the car, and what happens? They get into this room, and all of a sudden they're angry. You can't figure out why they're angry, or maybe they're nervous all of a sudden, or they're shy, which is unusual for them, right? A lot of times they're reading off the emotions of others within the room. They can feel that tense situation that's going on, even if it's just a one-time thing, right? Along with that, it can also impact the type of experience they have when going into a new environment. So if the environment does not feel positive, they may not want to be in that environment or return to that environment. And so that would be the negative versus positive experience, right? I have a couple of individuals who will not go to Dunkin' Donuts with me any longer. We went to one particular Dunkin' Donuts, the two of them with me, and they felt like they were being yelled at by the person behind the counter. They have now transferred that over to all Dunkin' Donuts. People yell at you behind the counter. So they will not go to Dunkin' Donuts anymore. Starbucks is still fine, but Dunkin' Donuts is not fine. And then criticism. So they may take criticism personally. So some of this might be because it goes against a wish to please others. As we know, a lot of individuals with Down syndrome want to please others, right? I myself want to please others, so I never take criticism well either. Maybe that's why Pat and I work so well together. But they may think that someone's anger, fear, anxiety is directed at them. They may also consider criticism as a personal attack, right? So there's such things as positive criticism, right? So if you're at your job and someone states to you, like, hey, you're placing this in the wrong spot, they may take that as you're doing your job awful now at this point, right? So social sensitivity can play a role in that. And then from there, we might see other behaviors start to occur. There's also misunderstanding of certain, certain social situations. So they may feel overwhelmed by these feelings. They may feel that a sense of loss of control in those feelings, and that they nor anyone else have any control at that moment. And that plays huge, especially in behavior. A lot of individuals, when they start to engage in maladaptive behaviors, have reported, especially in Down syndrome, a sense of loss of control of themselves in that moment. They feel like they have no control, and so they're looking for somebody to give them that sense of control. And often if they can't find somebody within their natural environment who is giving them that sense of control, so if you're reacting in fear, screaming, just like they are, they're not going to feel that sense of control. And I've had numerous individuals report that it's difficult for them to then self-calm themselves because they're feeding off of that energy of the room. And then it also makes them more susceptible to post-traumatic stress. Sorry, I totally skipped Pat's part. I apologize, Pat. So Pat is going to actually share with us some things that he sometimes perceives as people being angry. So
Yeah. Also, you get
I will read at the bottom. You're right.
I don't like when people talk loud to me. I don't like yelling and people being disrespectful. And also sometimes have trouble with people that have access.
So accents. So what Pat shares there is often what we see in individuals with Down syndrome is somebody is yelling, they misinterpret it as them being angry, right? I know in the Nicholson household, hopefully I won't point out Pat's mom, but she's in here, so hopefully she's not too angry from me saying this. But if she yells at the stairs, like, Pat, Jonathan's here, get ready, he often will respond in a negative way because he feels like he's being yelled at by mom at that point. Mom has no intentions, she's not being mean, she's not angry with him, she's just notifying him that I'm at the house. But he takes it as mom's angry that I'm not downstairs yet right now, and possibly Jonathan's angry that I'm not downstairs right now, which is not the case at all. So there's that misperception. Accents, a lot of individuals I work with have trouble with accents, both in regards to understanding or hearing the accent, but also they misinterpret as because they can't understand that this person does not understand me anymore. I've seen this in people who work in their job sites and they work with individuals with accents. They will tell me, I don't like that person. When I ask, why don't you like that person? They will say, well, they don't understand me. And it's not necessarily that the person doesn't understand them, it's they have an accent and the individual is having trouble understanding them. And because some of our guys don't always have the clearest of speech, the individual with an accent is also having difficulty hearing them, so there's that communication piece, right? And so then the situation just gets misread. And then of course, yes, Pat, thank you for reminding me of that. More susceptible to post-traumatic stress. So unfortunately, many individuals have an inability to effectively and adaptively manage these feelings, right? And like once expressed or experienced by others, which causes stress. Yeah? So we might think that some of our individuals don't experience stress with Down syndrome, right? But they do. You guys do experience stress, right? I see some head nods up here, my blue from the front. You guys do experience stress. So they may then take this like learned stress, as we might call it, and apply it to other environments that have similar triggers or vibes. So like I gave the example of the Dunkin' Donuts, right? that was a stressful situation for the 2 individuals that I work with. They now have decided that all Dunkin' Donuts are going to be like that environment. Yeah? So so they don't want to go in there because that was a traumatic experience for them. So sometimes when we have our guys, if they're telling you no, we have to get to the root of what's actually going on, and we'll start getting into that as we continue to go on. But before we get into other things, there's just some certain parts to remember. So with Down syndrome, there's some other pieces to this that also play a role in social sensitivity. Thank you. So there's visual memory. Yes, thank you. Yeah, visual memory. So our guys with Down syndrome have great visual memory. They can remember things in details that often you or I may struggle with. I remember I apparently, according to Pat one time, wore the same shirt 3 weeks in a row. I see him once a week, and I must have decided I liked that shirt, and I was wearing it every single Monday that I saw him. And he pointed it out to me. He said, "Do you ever change your clothes?" Okay. So they have great memory, right? I did not remember that. I couldn't remember what I had worn a week ago. You changed your clothes. No, I didn't. You asked me if I changed my clothes. Yeah. I know you changed your clothes every day. Yeah, you are a great dresser. Yes. This is a huge asset, right? It allows the individuals to navigate their environment, excel at jobs requiring consistency and order, as well as help them develop new skills, which we'll kind of get into. The visual memory, however, can also impede them in the sense that if they meet someone for the first time and that individual is upset, right, the social sensitivity piece of it, they may shy away from that person in the future, right? Because now they had a bad experience with that person and they no longer want to interact with that person. And that's a huge barrier to come over for them. The same is true at that one bad of the Dunkin' Donuts things I explained, right? Along with that, a lack of social skills can play a piece. So what I mean by that is actual social skills. So earlier I kind of described social situations, but actual social skills can play a role, right? Sometimes our guys don't understand, like, it's maybe not appropriate to respond to somebody in that manner or make that kind of comment to that person, right? Our guys can sometimes be, and girls can be very blunt at times, and so they might say comments that could get them in trouble. Especially if they're in a workplace, right? So they're working a job, they can't just go to the direct supervisor and say, "Hey, I don't like Jim over here," because they felt like Jim was yelling at them, right? That might be inappropriate at that time. Or go above their supervisor's head to go to the top dog. So, the government? Okay. The government. So lack of social skills may lead to misinterpretation of events as well, or experience. So someone yelling, as Pat said he doesn't like when people yell. Someone yelling might be mistaken for they are angry, right? So they're misinterpreting the situation. Literal interpretation can play a role as well with social sensitivity. So in the sense that some of our guys and gals will take statements at face value. So I've seen this, you guys have probably seen this as well, but for example, someone might state to one of our guys, "Wow, you're working like a dog." And guess what they hear? They hear, "You're a dog," right? That's what they take it as. So that can impact them, when really they're not being called a dog, they're being told you're working like a dog, which is a statement, but they're taking that literal interpretation of that. Or someone saying, "I'm so angry I could punch someone in the face," right? Sometimes people say that in the workplace. They now think that, hey, this guy is violent and he's going to punch me in the face because he's so angry right now. Right? So
Angry is here.
correct? Yeah, it could happen, right? Yeah. Sensory input in the environment plays a huge role as well with social sensitivity. So sensory input environment. So Katie Frank will be presenting a little bit more on this afternoon, so I won't go into great detail, but if you guys can catch her presentation, I think it's going to be really good. She's going to go through sensory input. But an example, this would be an individual wanting to relax in their basements with the lights dim, right? So mom and dad are worried the individual is depressed, so they keep turning the lights up brighter, not realizing that the bright lights are actually impacting the individual in their own right? Sometimes we have to be aware of the surroundings, realize that, hey, just because our guys might not want to wear certain clothing, those kind of things play a role as well in their behavior and their substance. And then of course the groove plays a role. For those of you that were here 2 years ago, Pat and I spoke about the groove, how we get around the groove. I won't spend a lot of time just for interest's sake, because we don't have much time. But individuals with Down syndrome create these grooves, help them navigate their environment. It's a positive thing, right? But sometimes these grooves, if they get stuck in a groove, it can lead to other things. So we're not saying get rid of the groove, but rather like change the groove. So if you're wondering more about grooves, think of it as like a line in the sand where we're changing the direction of the path. Does that make sense, everybody? I don't want to go too much into it without, but yeah. So an example of the groove helps our guys kind of navigate their environment. So a good example of that would be they develop these routines and they stick to those routines. So that's what the groove is. The groove is an aid for our individuals. Sometimes they get stuck into these routines, right, where it now takes 40 minutes for them to put on 2 pairs of socks because they have to first turn off their alarm clock, and they have to go put all these clothes away, then they have to go do X, Y, and Z, and now they can put their socks on, right? That's called the groove. So what we want to do, the groove plays a huge role in social sensitivity. It can impact social sensitivity as well. So what we don't want to get rid of grooves because grooves help our guys navigate their environment, but we might really want to take that into consideration. We'll try to change that groove for them. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we continue to go on. But does that answer your question? Okay. All right, so how do we turn this down or the negatives into an up, right? So what we want to do is we want to look at that situation, right? So our individual, maybe they came home and they said, I'm never going back to my job because everybody is pissed, right? Let's say they're saying pissed. So what you want to do is you want to kind of help them, or maybe they're not even telling you, they just say, I don't want to come back to our job, or back to my job, right? Now it's on us to figure out what's going on, right? So we want to look and name the emotion for them. And this is really important because sometimes our guys lack that verbal skill or that ability to understand what the emotion is. So we want to name the emotion. We can do this by showing them visuals of like anger, sadness. So I have a visual there. I actually stole it from Katie Frank. So once again, another plug for Katie Frank here. But visuals help big. Our guys are visual learners, right? I talked about that in the last slide. So we want to use visual with them. Help them label in the moment if you can. So if you're with them and you see like, hey, they're starting to get a little bit irritated right now, start asking them questions like, are you feeling upset, right? Are you feeling sad? Start labeling that moment for them so that we can teach them that abstract concept, make it more concrete for them. You know? Yes, that's the slide. Yes, and then semantics of words may need to be discussed. Some of our guys, right, they take literal interpretations, and maybe in the past they've heard on TV like, hey, Bugs Bunny is saying I'm really mad at Elmer Fudd, and that resulted in him shooting a gun at Elmer Fudd, who knows, right? So they might take that as a literal interpretation, so we need to take that into consideration as well and realize that semantics play a role. We also want to recognize the trigger source. So this is really important. What we want to do is we want to figure out what that trigger is. So earlier, you guys, Pat interviewed all those people, and they gave you guys examples of what makes them upset, or things that could. Now that was a lot of work for a lot of these individuals to realize that that's what made them upset, right? Recognizing a trigger source is not always the easiest thing to do. It usually involves asking a lot of questions, going to the environment where this possible negative experience happened, and trying to figure out what happened at that. Okay? Role plays are huge. So, yes, point 2, you're absolutely correct. So actually, Pat is going to share with you guys, before we get into role play, a little section.
Now is your chart.
Jonathan, and I will do business today. If I don't like something or I have a problem, and business to me helps me money to listen to the words and I cannot get angry.
So what that means is Pat is talking about, Pat and I do what's called, he calls it decision making, right? So it's a semantic thing. We used to call it problem solving, no longer likes the word problem solving, so we've changed it to decision making. So what we do in decision making time is we try to identify the trigger, or his source of frustration, or his source of anger, or fear, or sadness. So what that looks like is Pat and I will sit down together, right? And I will usually have a list of questions for Pat, and I will write down his answer. So I will show him the question written down, Pat will read the question, and then I'll let him answer. And then I'll usually write down his answer so that we can try to work through this. Another good thing that I didn't really get into, but if you're having trouble figuring out what the possible trigger is, ABC data charts are fantastic. Google it, you'll find them on the internet, they're widely available. It's a good tool to use to help identify triggers. Essentially, ABC stands for antecedents, behavior, and consequence. What you're doing is you're looking, antecedents stands for what happens before the behavior. B stands for behavior, obviously. So what did they do at that time, or what was the behavior at the time? And then C is consequence. So what was the consequence of their behavior, right? So sometimes you have to write it out in order to try to figure out the trigger. You might have to go back multiple times, right? If it's at their job and they keep coming home and they keep telling you, I'm frustrated with my job, or their employer are telling you they're not clocking in for their job, or they're not doing certain job tests, ABC data charts can be extremely helpful figuring out the why of what they're doing or not doing. So just it can be useful for them to use. Or you can do what Pat and I do. We do decision making. So we sit down, and that's all we do for that 30-minute time period is we talk about that situation. We look at all the factors. Sometimes I have to ask him, is it this person? Is it this person? Is it this task? Try to be as specific as you can in that moment. Role playing it. So role plays are a vital piece of all of this. So role plays help us change the groove, which I talked about, right? Can help us change that groove. And they can help individuals create a visual memory which they can easily access, right? Our guys are visual. They play these videos in their head over and over, right? So they maybe learn through role plays, like when you go to greet somebody, you shake their hands, right? They play these videos in their head before they go to do that, right? So sometimes we need to change that video. So in these visual memories can create negative emotions, which can run this, right? So another way that you can do is essentially the old model of fight fire with fire. And so what that means is we're trying to replace the adverse memory or experience and replace it with a new positive memory. So in certain instances, you may also choose to do a desensitization plan with that. Is everybody familiar with desensitization plans? Okay, so I can cover that then. So to help individuals like overcome a fear, we use what's called the desensitization plan. And what we do is we slowly, expose them to the thing that they're fearful of. So we talked about fears early. A wonderful Nina here expressed that she was fearful of cats, right? So with Nina, maybe what we do with Nina is we would start with a stuffed animal. So we introduce a stuffed animal, and we say, Nina, like, here's a stuffed animal of a cat, right? And we would have the cat far away, and we'd slowly move the stuffed animal closer and closer. And then once we get to a point, I might ask her, hey, Nina, can you hold the cat? Then we might add some sound in with the stuffed cat. Then we might go to videos of cats playing, right, with each other, and then playing with other humans. And we're just building upon that to try to change that memory of a cat that Nina probably has a memory of a cat where she had a bad experience with a cat at some point in her life. And so that's a good way to address that behavior. Does that make sense, everybody? It's clear? So when we role play, we are in essence going over the scenario, then role playing the scenario in a positive manner, right? So we're just changing that groove, right? So we're role playing, we might have to start with what actually happened. So if somebody got into a fight with somebody, we might have to role play how the fight went. And then we role play, well, the next time, if this were to happen, this is what we could do in that situation. And a key component of that is to try to do it within the environment. Okay? The reason for that is our guys learn better when it's in the environment, right? They're creating these videos. So you can always work on these skills outside of the environment, but now you have to transfer them to the environment because those skills may not transfer to that environment. That environment might look different. This environment is much different than what I usually do on a daily basis, right? I'm working with clients in their homes, group homes, day programs. It's a much different environment than Pat and I are presenting right now. Another important thing to do is to teach them to ask for help. Okay? So this is another big one too. So teach them the skill of asking for help or walking away when new situations arise that they're unsure of what to do. Pictures, social stories, and role plays can help them learn this valuable skill set. Pat and I have done video modeling that has worked extremely well. So video model what he should be doing. Sometimes it involves me having to cut video and just showing him what the good things are, right? So focusing on that. We also have developed coping skills. So we want to help them develop healthy coping skills, such as copy letters or words, listen to music, things to help them kind of just de-stress and process that social sensitivity in that moment. Pat's going to share with us some of the things that he does for coping skills.
Listen to music in my yards, relax on the couch, and work at my phone. Go to the basement and do my work, watch my shows, this is for me.
And then decision making, yeah. That's what we do. So those are Pat's coping skills, right? So when you feel like you've had a very draining day, you usually go and do something. A lot of times he does a lot. He'll do multiple of them to help him de-stress. Now these weren't always skills that Pat had. Some of these things he did, like his jobs, as he calls them, right? What would be one of your jobs that you did?
Well, he likes to clean.
He likes to clean. So mom and dad don't mind the cleaning for the most part. But he likes to clean, right? That's a good de-stressor, right? That helps him de-stress. A lot of times if he's feeling anxious, he will start cleaning things. But that's something that he had to learn over time, right? It didn't just come to him naturally. Does that make sense, everybody? All right, so we will move on to flexibility. So flexibility is a huge one. We want to teach our guys flexibility, obviously, for a good reason, right? It's good for everybody to be flexible. There's going to be times where you can't be in charge of everything, and you have to just roll with things, right? Earlier I kind of talked about the groove, right? So though we should respect the groove, too much groove can be a problem. That's what sometimes happens with our guys, right? They develop social sensitivity impacts them, so they have this negative experience at school, let's say, right? So now every time they see school, that negative experience, that video, replays in their head, right? And now this has become a groove. So maybe now they're pacing outside of school before they can go into school, right? And it's impacting them in the sense of now they're being late, it might be disruptive to other students within the school, those kind of things, right? It's a problematic group at that point. So we want to teach them flexibility so that we can teach them ways to kind of essentially navigate their group in a more positive manner. An example that I have of this is I have a young man who started literally taking 50 books out at his shoulder. Yeah? So he would go to Shoal. If you've ever been to Shoal, the one side of the Shoal is usually lined with books, and books are there for them to pick and read and study. He would literally go and he would take 50 books off the shelf and stack them and tell people he was learning. Well, 50 books high is pretty high. it was kind of disruptive to other people. He was getting up while the rabbi was speaking, and it was just causing a lot of chaos. And if people would try to stop him or ask him to stop, he would become agitated. This became an unhealthy belief for him. Okay? So what we had to end up doing is we started working on his flexibility, right? Being flexible, understanding that you don't need to take out 50 books to look like you're learning, or be the best learner. He wanted to be the best learner. It took us a long time to figure out what that trigger was. So what we did was we did a lot of video modeling with him, showing the appropriate way. When you take out one book, you put the next book away. And then on top of that, we taught him flexibility. If somebody asks you, hey, can you please put this away? Being flexible, explaining if he couldn't, if he didn't want to, or if he still needed that book, explaining it to him rather than yelling and saying, no, leave me alone, right? So we taught him that flexibility. So you want to start with something, pick a behavior change. You want to make sure it's a task that isn't too difficult, and it's something that will end in positive results. Okay? So you don't want to first start tackling the hardest thing first. You should always start tackling the lowest things, start creating that positive when we're teaching flexibility, right? So that we maintain interest in teaching this. Okay? You want to pick a time to encourage flexibility when you have the time, right? If you don't have the time, it's not going to go well. Okay? Understand that learning takes time, right? So even though you think they should learn it in 10 minutes, they may not necessarily learn it in 10 minutes. So don't pick it when you're waiting for your other kids to get ready, or you're like, oh, we have 10 minutes before we have to eat, so we might as well work on this learning flexibility. It's probably not going to be a great time to start working on it. Okay? You want to explain clearly and patiently what behaviors would constitute flexible options. So you want to explain to them, like, hey, we're going to work on this situation. So if somebody says to you, can you please move? This is how you respond, right? We want them to know what we're working on. Next, you want to use visual cues and pictures, videos, etc. to help you with this. And then don't attempt to change until calm. So if they're feeling stressed, they may not want to change, right? And along with that, yeah, they may not want to change at that point. So, and I apologize to Pat again, I've skipped you, so Pat is going to share some of the visuals that he uses to help him with flexibility. And so, go ahead, Pat.
So I use visuals to help me. I use a calendar, pictures to remind me to do things, like a drink lots of water. I watch videos on my iPad and develop diagrams, and write things down to remind myself.
So these are all visuals that Pat and I have used in the past to teach him flexibility. The calendar especially works really well with Pat in teaching flexibility. We use a pencil so that we can erase things if we need to erase things, right? Good skill to teach flexibility. It also helps him kind of prepare that these things are coming up, right? Pat doesn't always like to meet with certain individuals. Friday, for example, he didn't really want to meet with one of his therapists at the time. But we were teaching flexibility, right? So the calendar kind of gives him that heads up of this is happening, and how can we then process or learn this flexibility so that when this event comes, I'm now ready for this event. Along with that, we don't want to attempt change until calm. And what I mean by that is if your individual is stressed out, it's not a good time to teach flexibility, right? We want to have their full attention. If they're stressed about things going on within their environment, they're not going to be able to be flexible at that point, right? We want to help them de-stress, use those coping skills, those kind of things, and then we can start working on the change. Avoid judgment. This is a big one, especially if you're a parent. I have a 4-year-old. She can be very stubborn at times. I got into this habit of myself of, I say to her, it really bothers me when you yell and scream like that, right? Is that helpful for her? It is not helpful whatsoever. Does it make me feel better? Maybe a little bit. But it is not helpful for her. The same is true for our guys, right? we don't want to be judgmental. If they tell you, I don't like Rosemary, but you know Rosemary is the sweetest person in the world, right? Don't repeatedly say to them, come on, Rosemary is the sweetest girl in the world, right? They might have a valid reason for why they don't like Rosemary. Maybe Rosemary, one time they saw Rosemary give somebody a look and they thought it was aimed at them, and now they feel like, hey, Rosemary doesn't like me because she gave me this look, even if it wasn't directed at them. Okay? We also want to deliberately teach the word flexible. So Pat and I will talk about flexible. So we'll say we need to be flexible in this instant, right? If we can teach them these, in a sense, trigger words to help them learn to be flexible, that can be really helpful. Or Pat likes to call it, what do you like to call it? It's not problem solving, it's decision making, right? So instead of using the word flexible, I was going to say, I think we should do some decision making at this point. And that kind of gives him a good understanding.
He's good.
Thank you. This is why I love working with Pat, because my ego just gets boosted. I get the worst of my ego all the time. And then, of course, we want to reinforce, right? So if they're being flexible, we want to reinforce that, right? So we want to reinforce them with praise, just like Pat reinforced me. We also want to reinforce them with either tangible things that they like or we know that they like to do, maybe a special trip somewhere. Oftentimes, reinforcement that Pat likes from me is I buy him the coffee. And so that's a great reinforcement. He likes. We do drink coffee together. Pat likes that, so we want to reinforce that behavior. Yeah? So how can caregivers help? So we have a little diagram here, but caregivers can help in a way of being observant of body language during tense situations or when in new environments, right? You guys know when your individuals are tense and feeling it, right? Be aware of that. Remember that your individual may not know or may not be able to verbalize it that moment, right? So you might say to them, what's wrong with you? They might not be able to tell you at that moment. There's times where Pat and I'll go see Pat at work, and I can tell Pat is visibly upset. In that moment, he cannot share with me. The instant we're out of that moment, a lot of times he can share with me. Sometimes that environment really impacts what they're able to share with us. Validate their feelings and emotions, right? So everybody likes to be validated. Pat's former behavior analyst, I say, is like the master of this. She's great at always saying to Pat, like, I know that you're angry right now. It's good to validate. That makes you feel heard, right? Yeah, Pat wants to be heard. Yeah, and she's absolutely correct. She's also using that language, right? So now he knows, hey, when I feel like this, I feel angry, right? So she's reinforcing it. I have stolen that idea from her as well, but I always give her credit because she's fantastic at it. She's naming the emotion, right? The next one. Help them identify the source or trigger of the emotion. No known trigger, then there may be other explanations. Maybe they're fearful to discuss the source. Maybe you're asking them in that environment and they're just not ready. They're fearful of what the repercussions might be if they're to talk about it. The source may be something that occurred in another environment, right? And so they're taking that memory from another environment and replaying it in their head now. So maybe they don't like dogs, and all of a sudden they're in their day program, and who comes to the program? The therapy dog, right? They've seen the therapy dog maybe before from afar, but now they're yelling at people, telling people, I don't want to be here anymore, please take me out of here, or they're crying, right? Might not be the actual therapy dog, but an incident that they had with another dog in the past, right? They're replaying that. And then, the children may be playing a role at that point. Have them role play the situation. So once you know what it is, have them role play the situation. Name the emotion and create a visual representation, and are used in the moment learning. So if you can catch it. When I'm with Pat, I can do a lot of in the moment learning. And once he learns those skills, he maintains those skills. That's a great thing about Down syndrome. They have these great memories and they remember all these things. So we need to play to their strengths. Yeah, it can also be, I hear you laughing, but it is. It's a great strength. Yeah, he's absolutely correct. It's all in here. So we want to stay neutral. So remember, that your own emotions, so body language, facial expression can play a huge role, right? So even if we think that we're not displaying emotions, they can usually read it. So we need to just be hypersensitive to that. And then not getting angry too, right? So if they do something that maybe they yelled and screamed and ran out the room and now you're angry, they're gonna play off that emotion, right? So maybe you need 5 minutes to do your own coping skills before you start to address. And then obviously reinforce. Behavior is obviously my profession. And we like to reinforce the behaviors that we want to see, right? So if I see Pat and I are working on some skill and I see Pat execute that skill, I'm going to reinforce. We want to make a big deal about it. I might pull somebody from far away and say, look at what Pat just did, this was amazing, right? So we want that reinforcement piece is huge. So, and then just some things to remember. So social sensitivity is a positive. I know we talked a lot about the negatives of social sensitivity and how it can impact our individuals, but it is a positive. It allows our guys to be who they are, right? It makes them unique, right? It's why a lot of people say individuals with Down syndrome are the most friendly people, right? It's true. It's because of social sensitivity. I put this in there for any superpower or superhero people, but with great power comes great responsibility, right? It's a great power that they have. So now we just need to take that power and turn it into always a positive type thing. And then celebrate it and reinforce it, right? So if they're expressing their sincere thoughts and feelings with you, celebrate it. Say, like, thank you for letting me know that you care about me, or thank you for asking me those things. Questions? Okay, yes? Yeah, you want to go around the room? You want it? Yeah.
I really learned about my behavior, that I am doing good at it. And I learned when I learned my behavior by my journal down,
Great.
and then I think doing like positive things.
Great.
And when I was thank God it was over me for my blessing, and then and I helping with my family now with my behavior thing, and I did breaking the pad, my brother was pet that, and yeah, my family was my mom, my sister, my niece, my dad, and my husband, they all get along. And then they help my family, and I'm doing good at it, and I am doing well, but with my learning skills, I learned about I get frustrated, and then I go to walk away.
Great. So you have great coping skills, it sounds like. That's awesome. It sounds like you've learned quite a bit. Yes. Turning into a talk show.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, first off, you did a great job, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate reinforcement people. This is great.
And good job to you, Patrick. You did a great job.
Thank you so much.
So my question is, how can a person with Down syndrome react if they have like a past memory or something and they all of a sudden just remember very like this happens to me like all the time. Yeah, that's my first question. So can a social can social sensitivity happen like very rarely?
It can for some individuals, yeah. Dr. McGuire notes it in his chapter on social sensitivity about one individual was talking about the passing of a family member, and that incited an entire group, just discussion about everybody that they all remembered. And it was, I remember reading in the chapter that you said it was impressive, like they were going back years and years and years, and they started talking in such vivid details. So that definitely is true. My suggestion at that point is if you feel really bothered by that memory, is trying to create a new memory to replace that memory. So if you know like this happened in this specific location, maybe going back to that location with mom and kind of working through that, right? And it can be tough, it can be really tough. Or watching videos of people having positive experiences.
I actually have a second question.
Yeah.
Because of past experiences that you've had in the past, can that impact you later? And if it can, how could they possibly react when there's such a strong and tremendous memory?
That's a very good question. Yeah, that is a tough one. I think it depends on the individual. Behavior is definitely an individual thing. So we would look at like your own individual experience and then try to tailor something around that to help you kind of overcome that traumatic experience. But traumatic stress is a hard thing to deal with, and it takes a lot of work. But it's possible to overcome it. Just takes a lot of work to put in. I know I'm not answering you specifically, but like I said, everyone's kind of individually different and their story is different. And so I don't want to say one thing and then everyone's like, I'm going to try that with myself and it doesn't work because everyone is different and individual.
I got one more.
Yeah, I love it.
Sorry guys, sorry I'm taking up so much time. That's what I promise. But I just say. Right. So, what did it happen like? So, while ago you still remember it? Can that still impact you? You know, it was like so many.
Definitely, for sure. Yeah. So social sensitivity plays a huge role in what your life, it sounds like, and others' lives in this room. But it's a great skill. I put the superhero quote on there because it's like a superpower. It's amazing. So.
Okay, thank you so much for your help. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for the great questions.
We're actually.
Oh, we're out of time.
Yeah, we hit our time limit. Thank you so much. This was a very well attended session, and I thank Patrick and Jonathan for the presentation. So thank you so much.